Many business datasets start in Excel, but spreadsheets alone can't answer important geographic questions, such as where are sales strongest, which customers are closest to your stores, or what demographics surround your locations. In this video, you will learn how to bring Excel data into Maptitude, analyze sales data by zip code, update maps automatically when Excel data changes, calculate drive times, distances, and trade area demographics, and export your results back to Excel. For example, here I have an Excel workbook that contains a worksheet with customer data that includes addresses and sales volume, and a second worksheet with the addresses of my stores. Maptitude makes it easy to map my data in several ways. In the Maptitude home window, choose the New Map of My Data Table Spreadsheet option to prepare maps that use data from an Excel file. When I click OK, Maptitude asks for the location of the Excel file and which sheet to use. I'm going to work with the customer worksheet first, so I'll go ahead and click OK to start the Maptitude Create a Map wizard. Maptitude shows you the fields in your data that it found for mapping. You can verify and change the fields if necessary, but in this case they are correct, so I can go ahead and click Next. Now choose how to use your data in the map. First, let's locate the individual customers as points on a map. So I'll choose this first option to locate the records in the Excel file by address, zip code, or city, and click Next. Because I expect my customer spreadsheet to change frequently, I would like to link the map to the Excel file so that they stay connected. To do that, Maptitude needs a unique ID field that identifies each record that you specify and choose it in this dropdown. When I click Next, Maptitude gives me the option to display the data with a theme. For example, I could show the customers with different colors or sizes based on their sales volume. I'm going to choose the Size Theme option and choose the Sales field so that customers with higher sales will be shown with larger symbols. Next, I can choose some analysis options. For now, I just want to see the customers on the map, so I will leave the None option chosen and click Finish. Maptitude uses the address information in the Excel spreadsheet to place a point for every record and reports how many features were located and with what precision. When I click OK, Maptitude redraws the map with the geocoded customers, scaled to show their volume of sales. Plotting customers individually is useful, but it can still be difficult to see broader sales patterns. To identify where sales are strongest, let's summarize the customer data by zip code. This time I want to use Create a Map wizard to add the data to the open map, so I will choose Map, Add Table Spreadsheet to a Map. I'll use the same workflow we just saw, but this time I'll attach the data to zip codes instead of creating customer points. Again, I will link the data to the map, and this time I'll choose to create a color theme of the sales data. Maptitude adds a color theme to the map showing the total sales in each zip code. Let me hide the landmark areas and customers so that the zip code theme stands out more clearly. Zip codes shown in lighter colors have lower sales, and zip codes shown in the darker colors have higher sales. Finally, in order to do some analysis, it will be helpful to add the store locations to the map. So again, add the spreadsheet to the map, only this time using the stores sheet. Because my store locations do not require any regular updates, I will go ahead and just import them into the map without linking them to the Excel file. I'll choose None for the theme option, but I will check this box to label the stores, and click Finish. When I click OK, Maptitude adds the 3 store locations to a new layer in the map and zooms to show these locations. If you want, you can use the Display Manager to change the style or labels of the store layer. For example, let me change the symbol, the size, and the color. And I'll make the labels a little larger and a different color. Finally, I'll click the Undo Zoom button to see the previous scale. I have now used the data in the Excel file to show me which zip codes have the highest sales, where all the customers are and what their sales are, and where the stores are located. Recall that we linked the customer data to the map. The advantage of linking rather than importing data is that your map can be refreshed when the spreadsheet changes. I'm going to demonstrate this by modifying the customer Excel sheet. For example, this customer now has $4,000 in sales. This customer has moved to a new location and now has sales of $5,000. And these other 3 customers here in Littleton are no longer active, so I'll delete those 3 records. If I save the Excel file and return to Maptitude, notice that there are no customers here in Leominster, and there are several here in Littleton. When I choose Map, Update Linked Records, Maptitude updates the map to use the latest data. You can see that this customer now has greater sales. Here's the customer that moved to Leominster, and there are no longer any of the deleted customers here in Littleton. Notice also that the linked data shown with this theme on the zip code layer also updated accordingly. Now let's use Maptitude to perform some geographic analysis of the customers and get the results back into Excel. First, I want to find exactly which of my customers are within 5 miles of one of the stores and create a new Excel spreadsheet of just those customers. I'm going to use the Radius tool in the Drawings Tools dropdown and click on the map at one of the store locations. I'll enter 5 in the Radius box and click OK. Maptitude draws a circle with a 5-mile radius on the map. Now if I right-click on that and choose Export to Excel, I can create a new Excel file that contains information about what is located within that 5-mile circle. Let's take a look at the worksheets contained in that Excel file. The first sheet just lists all of the populated places that are within the circle. Of more interest to us is the second sheet that lists every customer who is within that circle. The third sheet shows the stores within the circle and would help us see if some stores are cannibalizing on the store's territory. In this case, there are no other stores within 5 miles. The next worksheet is data from the color theme of sales on the zip codes. Any zip code that is at least partially within the 5-mile circle is listed in this first column, and the sales for those zip codes is shown in the second column. Finally, Maptitude computes some demographic data. For example, here's the estimated household income for the population living within 5 miles of that store. And if I scroll to the right, you can see the number of households in various income ranges, the population, and more. Instead of analyzing one store at a time, let's compare all stores and see how their surrounding customers and demographics differ. Rather than potentially drawing many circles, I can use the Buffer tool to compute multiple circles at once, and then export their data to Excel. Let me remove this circle from the map by right-clicking and choosing Delete. Make sure that the store layer is my working layer, and choose Buffers from the Analysis Tools dropdown. I'll make 5-mile buffers, and check this box so I can compare the buffers around each store. And check this box to compute the demographics. Maptitude creates 5-mile buffers around all of my stores, redraws the map to include the new buffer layer, and opens a data view showing the calculated demographics. I'm going to close the data view and make the buffer layer the working layer in the map. Data from area layers that you create with Maptitude, such as buffers, can be exported to Excel by clicking the Export to Excel button. This Excel file is similar to the previous one, except that it contains information on features within 5 miles of any store. And when I go to the Census Overlay worksheet, you can see how the demographics compare around the various stores. For example, you can see that the income is higher around stores 1 and 3, but significantly more people live around store number 2. Next, let's create a table showing the drive time and distance from each customer to each store and display those results in an Excel file. Choose Distance and Travel Time tables from the Analysis Tools dropdown. I will choose the customer layer as the origins, and the stores layer as the destinations, Choose Matrix as the output format, open an Excel to create an Excel file, and click OK. Enter a name for the new Excel file and click Save. Maptitude determines the drive time and distance from each customer to each store. Because drive times are being calculated along the street network, this process may require more time depending on how many features are in your layers. When it is done, it displays the resulting Excel file showing you the travel time and distance from every customer to each of the stores. Finally, let's study the customers based on the drive times to the stores. I'm going to hide the zip code layer so that the drive time rings will be easier to see, and then choose Drive Time Rings from the Analysis Tools dropdown. I'm going to click this button to use my stores as the locations around which to build the drive time rings, and create 3 rings at 10-minute intervals. Before I create the rings, I'm going to do one more thing, which is to include the customers in the ring analysis. So I'll click the Settings button, and click this button to include my customers in the demographic analysis. For each time ring, I'm going to count the features in the customer layer and sum the sales of those customers. Now I can go back to the Drive Time Rings toolbar and click Create. Maptitude uses the drive time information for the streets to determine how far you can go from a store in 10, 20, and 30 minutes, and adds those rings to the map. All of the customers within the red center rings are within 10 minutes of a store, the customers within the next ring are 10 to 20 minutes from a store, and the customers within the purple outer ring are 20 to 30 minutes from a store. Click this button to generate a drive time ring report. The report will contain the map, and when I scroll down, this table shows demographic and sales data. You can see how income, population, households, and other variables compare within the different time rings. And at the bottom, you can see how many customers live within 10, 20, and 30 minutes of a store and what their aggregate sales are. You can export this report to an Excel, XLS, or XLX file from the Export dropdown. And that wraps up this video showing some of the ways that you can use Maptitude with Excel.